Hello there. It's March 25th, 2024, and I wanted to take a minute to just look at myself on my computer on the camera here and talk about having gratitude about the way I was raised and all that, and where I grew up and the people that took care of me. I have a long list of people. And it starts with Bump and Myra Gudgel, who adopted me at birth when, shortly after they got their telephone in 1960, who lived out in the middle of nowhere, south of Lake Nebraska, 32 miles. They had just gotten their phone, and in 1955, my mom's family moved from Long Pine, Oregon, to Eugene, Oregon, and my mom's sister, Pat, was a registered nurse that went to the University of Nebraska Medical Center, and she was the director of nursing at Sacred Heart Hospital in Eugene, Oregon. And she picked up the phone and she called my mom and said, "Hey, you got a baby boy?" Bump and Myra had a hard time conceiving. They thought that my mom was that Myra was incapable of doing so, but in those days they didn't have fertility clinics. They just thought that she had plugged fallopian tubes, but anyway, Pat asked Myra if how long it would take for her to just come and pick me up, and so they jumped in the car. She said 3 days. They jumped in the car and they hightailed it to Oregon, which was a pretty hefty drive. And so they went to Oregon and adopted me, and they got pro bono services from a lawyer on this particular case because I was a welfare case that the mother, my birth mother, couldn't keep me because she had no money, and so she had to give me up. And so the lawyer that handled the adoption was an infamous lawyer in Eugene, Oregon, by the name of Thelma Chaplin Fowler. And Oregon has a rule about researching all those records that you can't do it until you're 25. And so the day I turned 25, I researched all that and found out that she had passed away, and that the only way I could ever figure out what was going on with my origins, my bloodline for genealogy or whatever, was I would have to pay to get the estate researched. And of course, being a person of 25 years old and going through my youthful ups and downs, what happened is I elected not to pursue that further. And just live with the birth certificate I had. And so I want to go here in the next couple weeks. I have a hernia that's gotten real bad on my lower right side. It's called an inguinal hernia on the right-hand side. And my heart disease, it continues to advance. And you can kind of see that, I'm not the same weightlifting person. And I've lost about 40 pounds since I had a stroke. And I lost most of that weight while I was in the hospital for 42 days, kind of a 42-day crash diet. And I lost the ability to raise my arm beyond that far on the left side after years of being a speed typist. I have what's called left side neglect in a stroke victim, or as a stroke survivor in my case. I got up on the morning of December 7th of 2021. I got up and I was eating breakfast, and I had the hiccups, which I often did, which I suspect was probably from drinking a little too much too often. I didn't drink every single night, but usually had a swig or two as a matter of course during the day or when I got home to just, quote, relax me. And so anyway, I was hiccuping. I took a shot of vodka and I was doing my laundry, and I picked up my shorts to go put them in the washer. I had a top load washer, and I opened the laundry room door, and my left leg just all of a sudden gave out, and down I went. And so I went on the floor. I had the TV on CNN, so I went down on the floor, and I just couldn't get back up no matter what I did. So this Life Alert people, they are always advertising I can't fall and I can't get up. But I didn't have my phone there, and I didn't have Alexa programmed for any special services like that. So anyway, I laid on the floor there from about 10 in the morning until about 12:30 in the morning, and 12:30 in the morning, or even before that, during the day, my friend John Katalik, who's a flight attendant, and he's a physician's assistant by training, and he worked on Air Force One, and he worked at the White House bunker for President and Mrs. Clinton, and has 25 service medals. And just is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. But anyway, I met him because we're both gay guys, and I met him on Tinder one night, and he had just a wonderful place there at Austin Ranch, at Thousand Oaks at Austin Ranch, which is where I lived, which is a very eclectic community of working professionals in high-end jobs, which I had when I moved in there, and which I continued to have until I took a medical buyout in May of 2017. So anyway, long story short, John at 12:30, Alexa has a feature if you have an Echo Dot. It's called Drop In, and he dropped in on me because he had been over early in the day. He'd been over and he'd asked the complex management, the apartment offices. It's a huge complex. It's got 5,000 apartments. It is vast, and it takes up a number of acres, and it sits in the middle of a park. The nature preserve, the Arbor Hills Nature Preserve, it's called, in the Colony, Texas. The nature preserve is actually part of Plano, but it all sits in the Colony, which is kind of convoluted, I know, but that's how it is. The nature preserve is operated by the city of Plano. Anyway, the property sits in the midst of the nature preserve, and so of course there's plenty of bugs and critters, everything from skunks to tarantulas to snakes to, and they have trails, and there's a creek, and they have Austin Ranch is an amazing property. They got 4 bars, a coffee shop, a waxing place, a general store, an insurance agent, and a chiropractor's office, and 4 full-size, or actually 6 would be 6 full-size gyms, a volleyball court, and a tennis court, and some really cool pools and a hot tub and all those sort of things. Those amenities you might expect at a property like that. So anyway, while I go down my list, thank you, Bump and Myra, for raising me and making sure I got to and from school, and mentoring me by taking me to Oregon or leaving me in Oregon, or getting me all these wonderful gifts, like everything from the Weekly Reader to a chemistry set, to an erector set, to Monopoly games, you name it, they always had something. And my folks were avid card players, had a whole neighborhood they played with down there in Southwood Lake. Hours and hours and hours of cards, they loved it. And Myra, my mom, she was quite innovative, and kept a pretty clean house, considering I was out in the middle of the Sandhills. The nearest neighbor was about 4 miles from where our house was. And if you want to see those pictures, they're on my Facebook under gudgel.chuck/photos, and you can go through them. There's 233 of them in all. And one of the things I did before I left Texas that I said I would accomplish was that I would get all these pictures scanned get them all made digital, so that I could give them to my siblings. And so I got all that before I moved in Texas. I lost my lease after 183 months at Thousand Oaks. I lost my lease because I had a bidet, and if you know what a bidet is, keeps your bottom clean. Anyway, I had a bidet, and the toilet seat fell apart, and then we got into a pissing match because they didn't like the fact I had a bidet and they wanted me to remove it. And I kind of got a little bit impatient with them after 183 months, or I said 283, I think, but it was actually 183. So after that 183 months, and I had a $10,000 credit balance, which was fairly easy to do, given that I made very good money, upwards of well over $130,000 a year, which was pretty good money. Anyway, back in 2017, I had in 2013, in June 22nd of 2013, I had a nearly fatal heart attack. I I was up, same sort of thing. I was up having breakfast, and all of a sudden, my left shoulder, right about here, really started to hurt. My chest hurt, and I'm like, "Holy shit! I'm having a heart attack." And so it was pouring down rain, and in Texas, it doesn't do anything halfway. Texas is one of those places. Rarely are things halfway, whether it's the weather or whether it's food. You know, I always said about food in Texas, it's too much, too often, too sweet, and too salty, and too greasy. Anyway, I drove myself to Baylor Heart Hospital, which is there in Plano. It was about 2 miles from my front door, and I knew of it, and so I went to the emergency room there, and I walked in, and the pain is almost undescribable when you have a myocardial infarction. And so anyway, they got me stabilized. They couldn't get morphine to budge the pain, and so they gave me a nifty little drug called Dilaudid, and the Dilaudid is like, and so anyway, they gave me the Dilaudid, and they got me stable and got me on an IV and all that, and the next morning they took me and my cardiologist, who I had met in 2009 when I had hypertension. I tore my bicep off flipping weights up like that, doing flat bench press, and laying back down. I used to love to pop my back that way. Did that for 30 years. So anyway, my right bicep popped off, and I had the surgery scheduled after an MRI and all those other things. So anyway, I didn't have an MRI at that point, but anyway, I popped it off, and Logan was living with me at that time in 2009. So I got on the phone and I started calling people and said, I need to find a surgeon who will work on my arm for me. And so I found this guy. It's Flower Mound Orthopedic Associates, it's called, in Flower Mound, Texas, and an Indian guy by the name of Sanjay Singhal said he would do it for me. And of course, I didn't have the money I needed to get what they call a Ranger brace to support my arm in a sling and to stabilize my arm post surgery. And so a lady bought me one and sent it to me, and so or she had one and sent it to me. And so anyway, I had that surgery done, and prior to that surgery, in an effort to get my blood pressure down, they did what's called a cardiogram. They stick a catheter up your leg through your femoral, not your femoral, but your artery right there between your legs that goes in your legs. They do that. So at that point, they had put a stent in to get my circulation improved, but nonetheless, I had a heart attack, and while I was there at Baylor, Dr. Santos came over, and we already had an association because I already had a stent. He comes over, and so they did the procedure again, radiography of your cardioradiography, and anyway, he says, your heart is all sorts of effed up, and he said, you need a quadruple bypass, and I said, really? He said, yeah, you're a mess. And so I had called because I was in a hospital. I had called my friend Kent Vincent, who I knew from Highland Village and the gym, who I met at 24 Hour Fitness, and then I had called him, and so he came out to visit me, and I did all the paperwork, the admission paperwork, and the social worker there. She comes up to my room and she says, well, she says, I have an offer for you from the hospital. And I says, what's your offer? And she said to me, she said, well, here's what we'll do, is we'll get you all the services for 10% of the billing. And we'll give you a year's free medical care. We'll give you free rehabilitation. And I was laying there in bed and I said to Kent, I said, what do you think I should do? And Kent says, I think you should do it. He says, because you're probably not going to get another chance like this to get this behind you. And he said, you should just do it and get it over with. And I said, well, you know what, okay. And I was still experiencing pain in the next few days. They were giving me a drip, of course, and a saline. But anyway, the morning came for the surgery, and my chest was hurting, and I don't know if it was anxiety or what, but anyway, I said, well, you need to give me something. So they gave me a pretty hefty dose of a drug called Restorol, so they got me on the stretcher, and they took me to the operating theater, and Dr. Moncrief, the thoracic surgeon, and Dr. Pettyjohn, who assisted him, they said to me, you're a pretty big guy. You know what? We don't want to have to struggle to get you up here on the table. Can you get up on the table here and lie on the table, and we'll get your IV going, and we'll get underway? And I says, well, okay. And so I jump up on the table, or not jump because I got IV and I'm having heart problems. So anyway, I get my butt up on the table, and they slide me around and get me situated the way they want, and they put the mask on you, and they say, well, here it comes, we'll start counting to 10, and I'm like 1, 2, 3, and it was like lights off, and it's pretty amazing, the anesthesia these days. Propofol, I understand how Michael Jackson got addicted to Propofol. But anyway, Propofol is a cool drug. It's used for surgical anesthesia, little white milky stuff, and just a little bit goes a long ways. And out you go, and I think causes amnesia as part of the effects of Propofol. So anyway, down I go, and the next thing you know, I wake up, and it's about 9 o'clock at night, 9:30, it's dark, and I wake up, and I'm really super groggy, and I've got a ventilator in my mouth, and there's a nurse sitting on a chair across the room from me, and she says to me, she says, if you try pulling that ventilator out again, I'm going to strap you down. And of course, the ventilator's breathing for me, and that's the weirdest feeling, to have a tube down your throat and be conscious. So anyway, a couple hours went by, and so then she came and she pulled the ventilator out, so I got off the ventilator, and I also had, I had a big IV going in my left carotid, and then, I had IVs going everywhere else as well, and I had a catheter in my pee-pee, and I had 2 drains in my abdomen to drain all the fluid out of my thoracic cavity. Anyway, that's the story of my I can go on for a long time. I've gone on for 20 minutes here now. Anyway, I was there in the hospital, and Logan, who had lived with me from 2008 until 2011, and he grew up. I mentored him. I taught everything he knew. He was a brilliant kid in his own right, and quite the gifted computer programmer. Anyway, I knew Logan and I would eventually drift apart, which we never had a romantic relationship. It was more of a, I don't know, in the gay world they call it being a daddy, and I wasn't really his daddy, but I was kind of his caregiver. Made sure he had a roof over his head, and that he was a brittle heart type 1 diabetic, and had been since he was 10 years old. So anyway, Logan stayed with me, and I had a job at Southwest Airlines as the Global Systems Administrator for Southwest.com, and I had about 600 programmers. And one Friday afternoon, I was pushing updates via Puppet, a program called Puppet, which allows you to manage workstations all over the world remotely. So I was pushing an update on Puppet, and I had an Asian lady who worked with the user interface guy. They were working late. It was on a Friday night. And anyway, she starts pitching a fit, and I said to her, it wasn't Friday night. It was actually about 5:30 in the afternoon. And my boss, Jeff, was gone for the afternoon in a meeting. And so anyway, she pitched a fit, and she started scolding me. Like me because I'm Chinese and because I'm female. And I said, that's not the problem. I said, and she kept telling me I was gonna ruin her code that she'd worked on. And I said, don't worry about your code. I said, I'm doing a stash on it. I said, it'll be right there where you had it when it gets done. I said, it'll still be there. You'll be fine. I said, really, what you need to do is you need to go downstairs or across the hall. Uh, well, the Southwest Airlines Cafe was right across the hall from IT, the programming section, which was a pretty large group. We had about 300 guys in Dallas, and we had 300 guys down in Mexico, and and we had several in Atlanta as well. So anyway, this project I was working on was part of the Southwest had acquired AirTran, an airline down in Florida, and they were rebuilding all the systems to accommodate that change and to allow international travel and ticketing. And so they had a bunch of programmers for ThoughtWorks working on it, and that's where my Logan referral comes in. I used to ride the train down to Herb Kelleher was a brilliant businessman who started Southwest Airlines. And one of the things he did when Dallas Area Rapid Transit decided to build commuter rail, he insisted on having a train station at the back door of his corporate headquarters, which he did, which made it a breeze to just jump on the train and ride the train down to from Carrollton, ride the train down to the office. And that's what I would do every day. I'd jump on the train. I'd take Logan to work over in Frisco, where I'd gotten him a job, and helped him get a job, or took him over there because just a couple months after he moved to Texas, he had a gig he was doing, and he was coming home, and from that gig, and he got T-boned by a truckload of drunk Mexicans, and not to sound racist, but anyway, he calls me up and says, "Can you come pick me up?" And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, I totaled the car, so," he says, "I need you to come pick me up." And I said, "Okay, Logan, I'll be there in a little bit." So I picked him up, and they totaled the car, the insurance company did, and the car was history. And so from that point forward, I drove Logan everywhere. And anyway, to and from, when he got a job in Frisco, I helped him negotiate his salary offer, and I waited for 4 hours while he interviewed on the job, which I told him, I said, "You're going to get this job." And it was for a company that did health insurance resale, or health, they sold health insurance group policies. And so anyway, he got that job as a programmer, and he got them to change a lot of their technology around, and he was so good at what he did. After I showed him and I worked with him, and all the bumps and the rough spots, I would whiteboard the concepts out for him. And at that time, I lived out at Lewisville Lake, right next to the park, in the midst of Lewisville Lake Park, actually. And it was just, about 300 feet out our front door. Not even that far, actually. Anyway, Logan had taken that job, and he'd gotten several other jobs where I had rescued him from a technological perspective, and he was ready to go out on his own. And I introduced him to a guy who's an author, who also was one of the big shots at ThoughtWorks. Introduced him to Paul Hammett, and Logan was rejected so many times. I would go get a job at Sneaky Pete's, which is a big lakeside bar where they have a marina and pools and drinks all over the property. And I got a job working security there, and they wouldn't hire Logan because it's a hot job. It's down on the lake, and Texas gets pretty warm in the summer. And they were worried about liability, and so they told him, "Logan, we'd love to hire you because you seem like a really nice guy, but we can't because of your diabetes, and we're worried that it would get out of control." And so he was really bummed about that. But anyway, he did get the job there at the healthcare place, and he did do that. And so anyway, that was in 2011, and I knew we were getting a little bit further distant. And what I did was I decided that I thought we should live in a 3-bedroom place, so Logan could have his own bedroom and I could have an office, and we could both have our own bathroom. And so we rented a 3-bedroom place, but I didn't tell Logan this when I leased the place, but uh, when I negotiated the lease, I had a rider added to the lease that if for some reason Logan was to move, that I was immediately out of the lease. And so I got up. I was in great shape. We lifted every day, and Logan kept the hair off my back and things like that. And in 2007, I developed a great connection out of China where I could order the raw materials for to make my own anabolic steroids, which I did and injected them. And Logan helped me with that. And so anyway, we had a couple guys from Niton that came down to watch a movie with us, and we partied. And Logan made the best darn margaritas. And so anyway, we had the margaritas, and I had an Ativan prescription back then, or Xanax prescription. I think he bought maybe me a Xanax in one of my drinks that I was swilling, because he made the margaritas with Patron tequila. That stuff is smooth. It's really good, and of course the right lime, the right margarita mix. Just was absolutely just suck them down. Margaritas are a Texas and a Southern tradition. So more than once, I got really shit-faced with Logan. I would do the drinking and he would do the bartending usually. And so anyway, we had a good time, and we developed a pretty close relationship. But as time went on, we got further and further apart. And he didn't like the floor plan of the place where we lived. And I think I kind of unconsciously maybe pushed on him a little bit because I wanted things to continue to evolve. So the night that we drank with these two guys from Denton and watched the movie, apparently, I was really drunk. And so the boys tell me, have some great apnea sleep there, Chuck. And so they took off. We were on the second floor. And I plopped down on my bed, and I pass out. And I get up the next morning and no Logan. And I go on the table. There's a note. It says, "Sorry to leave this way, but too much bad, not enough good." And so he had packed up his stuff and took off. I called his dad up in Idaho, who is a really super neat guy as well. I called Dave McGrath, and I called him, and I called Dave, and I said, "Well, Logan's not here." I said, and he said, "Chuck," he says, Logan moved out. He said he's at work and he's okay, but he's not answering the phone today, and he probably won't answer your emails either." And I says, "Okay, well, that's a bummer." And then Logan's mother-in-law, or stepmom, she calls me, and she says, "Well, Logan was really pissed at you because you lost your job at Southwest." And I thought, well, yeah, we've been through a lot of ups and downs, and I was pretty depressed about Southwest, and there was a lot of stuff going on there. I did a great job, but I was pretty hunky at that time, and lifting every day, and all shaved and tanned and juiced up. And I had a guy who kept calling me at home, wanting to date me or take me out for lunch, he would call it. And Logan said, "Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that." And I never did do it. I did talk to Matthew later and said, "Matthew," I said, "you got us all in trouble." Or I said, "You got me worked up, which got me in trouble, and it didn't end well for me." And Matthew was a gorgeous guy. So, and I can say that because I'm a gay guy and I'm comfortable saying stuff like that. But anyway, the Chinese lady, she didn't go have a cup of coffee. What she did was she went downstairs to personnel, to HR, and she told him I was racist, and she told him I was a bigot, and she told him I was sexist, which I am not really. So anyway, they told me that I wasn't welcome to return any longer to Southwest. And Jeff didn't fire me, but I just got a call from Matrix Resources, which had the contract on the job. So they called me up and they said, they don't want you back. You don't have to go to work Monday. And I said, well, okay, that sucks. And I said, if I think I can mend it up. And they said, no, don't think so. And I actually did try to mend it up. I contacted HR about 3 or 4 days later after I got fired and after Logan left. And their reply to me was that we're going to get a restraining order against you to ban you from our property if you don't quit bugging us. And so I abandoned that, and I was really, really super, super depressed because of Logan, and I had money. I had several $1,000s cash in my drawer, in my dresser drawer, and so anyway, in my truck, I don't know. It had a low jack feature on it, and I don't know if somebody set it off or what happened, but anyway, my truck, I had to get it going, which I did, and so anyway, what happened was Logan is taken off, and I called him, of course, which is what I do because sometimes I'm persistent with the notion that, well, if we can just talk, we can work it out, which only made him push me back further. So anyway, that effort to resurrect our relationship failed until one day he finally answered, and I said, "Would you like to go to lunch?" And so we went to lunch. We was at IHOP, and I said, "Well, Logan, here's what I'll do." Is I said, "I'll pay your rent if you want to move back in, and I'll pay the mover to get you back in the apartment." And I said, "You're welcome to come back." And he said, well, he started crying, and he said, and his cell phone was actually, well, he didn't have a pager, he had a cell phone. So his cell phone's going off with text, and he starts crying, and he says, "Chuck, I gotta go." And he says, "My job is up my ass here." And so he takes his car, which he had bought after I went to work for Southwest, which Kent had loaned him a vehicle but had to give it back. So Logan fixed up that vehicle, and we gave it back to Kent. And so anyway, so Logan had gone down, and he didn't trade, but he gone down and he bought a new vehicle off the lot at Sam Pack down there in Dallas. And so and he financed it because he was making great money. He was 19 years old, making over $65,000 a year, which I told him. I said, when they made their offer, I said, "Tell him you won't take a dime less than 65." And he got what he asked for. They called him back. Took him about 10 minutes to decide. They called him back and they said, "Okay, yes, we'll give you 65, no problem." So he'd taken that job over in Frisco, and anyway. And he got a car, so I no longer had to drive him to work, which actually happened right before I lost my job. He had the car. So anyway, sorry, I've been talking for quite a while, and I'm not getting. Anyway, he takes all of his stuff except for his bed, which was an extra fluffy pillow mattress. I think it's called a plush, is the nomenclature they use in the furniture business. So anyway, he leaves that behind, and he leaves his iPad. And he calls me up and he says, "I want my iPad." And I said, "Well, Logan," I said, "you just moved out." I said, "You didn't give me no notice. You moved out in the middle of the night. I want the rent for the rest of the month." And so he comes over and he gives me the cash money. He calls his dad, and his dad tells him, "You know what?" He says, "You did move out without a notice. You need to pay Chuck because he's been so good to you." And so anyway, Logan comes and he pays me, and I hand him back his iPad, and he's on his merry way. And so I'm all depressed, and I had some cardio equipment, elliptical trainer and all that, and so I sold that, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to move." And so I walk across the street, and there's another really nice, pretty nice complex. And so I walked over there, and I had an exemplary rental history, which I went and applied there, and hired some. I went. They have a place where all the immigrants hang out, and you can go down there and pick them up. So I went and got me three guys from immigrants, and they moved me over there, over to this other apartment, this second apartment across the street at Park. It wasn't Park Lake, but I forget the name of it. But anyway, it was across the street, right to the south of where I lived before, just literally across the street. So I moved across the street, and I didn't have a job, so I get the phone put in, and I start sending faxes out, and I get my internet hooked up, and I get a job working out of New York, Cross Lanes, West Virginia, from an office in Dallas. But these guys, I really didn't want to have to drive to Dallas every day, so I would do as a graphical interface that would bog down their connection in the office. And so they said, we don't want you in this office. We want you to go out to Virginia and hang out there. And so they flew me out to Virginia, where I spent a couple weeks, and Cross Lanes, West Virginia, which was pretty cool. And I had a contract to work as the database administrator for the Sony Ultraviolet project for CTI Technologies out of Dallas. And so I did that, and then I came home, and they had a project manager who really didn't give a shit what I did. And so then I stayed at that place for the term of my lease, which was a year. I would get a check every Thursday afternoon. I would get an electronic deposit for 40 hours a week, even though I wasn't there anymore. And occasionally I'd have to do like a Zoom call or a Cisco WebEx call, but not very often. And once I got it all running, they really didn't call me very often. I maybe heard from them 5 or 6 times over the duration of the course of that year. And of course, being a gay guy, I met a number of people in that apartment, and really hated the apartment. Never put a washer and dryer in it, and just went across. Never installed the washer and dryer or anything like that, and just did the clothes across the street. And so anyway, I found a place where I wanted to move, which was right next to the train station in Louisville, so I could ride the train if I needed. And I went to move in there, and the day I was going to move in, the property manager of that particular property, it was a real queen. He got snippy with me, and I said, you're not very nice. I said, you're really not. And he says, well, if you have that kind of attitude, we don't want you here. And I said, I've already paid you the first month's rent. And I said, and the deposit. I said, I want you to give me a check. And he says, well, that'll take us 90 days to get that out to you. I said, no, it won't. I said, I want you to call your corporate office and tell them that I'm going to be down to see them today to get a check from them. And so what I did then was I jumped in my truck, and I went down and planted my butt in their corporate office and said, I want my money. And so eventually the gal at the front desk, she comes out with a check and hands it to me. And I take that over to the bank, and so I call up the moving company, Blue Moving, I think it was called. So anyway, I called these guys up, and they show up at 10 in the morning. I having my place that I was going to move to fall through, I called apartment finders in Louisville, and this lady calls me, and she says, I know just the place for you. It's called Austin Ranch, and it's over in the Colony. And she says, I'll give you the address, and you can run over there and look at it. And so I went over there and looked at it, and this was a second floor apartment, 7199 Sumner, apartment 203. And I take the tour of it, and the rent is just a couple $100 more a month than what I was already paying. And so I'm like, well, and there was no huge cash outlay. You didn't have to put any money down. You just couldn't have a criminal record, and you couldn't have bad credit. So anyway, they let you sign your name. So I signed a 1-year lease, which I continued to renew until after my open heart surgery, and until after I decided that I met John, and I decided I wanted to move over by the gym, which Thousand Oaks at Austin Ranch, which is one of the two properties at Austin Ranch. When I moved there, it was one property with all 5,000 apartments under Austin Ranch, and then they split it up, and they made the north one Flatiron, and they made the south one Thousand Oaks. And so anyway, I want to get closer to John because I know I've got a bad heart, and I don't want to go up and down those stairs every day. But I still work out, and I'm still squatting and doing all those things, of course, and doing my step ups and all the things I did at the gym, and my cardio. And I just don't want to have to go so far to do it. And I want to be close to John so I can just be across the. And so I moved to this place. I look at this place, and they say, "Hey, so this is the roommate's apartment." So I get into this apartment. It's about 2,000 square feet, a little over that actually. It's about 2,000 is what it's at. And so anyway, they convinced me that the best way to hedge my bet on it was to do a 2-year lease. So that's what I did, and I kept renewing it until they ended it on the 1st of June in 2023. They told me I had to get out by June 1st. And so May 17th of 2023, I hired a buddy or a kid I had met who owns a place, who has a moving business in there in the colony, and I called Colby. Finesse Moving is what it's called. I called Colby, and he paid me, and the guys came and they picked my stuff up. And I had moved a lot of it, but not all of it. And so they got my bed and my TV and my heavy furniture that I couldn't do myself because this was post-stroke, and there's no way I could do it myself. And so I was at their mercy. And anyway, they got me moved, and it took them quite a while. And what I'd done was I had rented a place in Louisville at the first apartment that I could get in on a lease, and it was the apartments where I had lived when I originally moved to Louisville. And so I moved over there, and it got me a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And they lied. They told me it was about 2,000 feet, but it wasn't. It was about 1,000, or just over 930 or something. So anyway, I moved my stuff in there, and I got this big heavy stereo, 7.1, and I give the heavy components and the receiver. I give that to the maintenance guy, who the manager there tells me he's an awesome guy, and he gets my TV mounted and all that. I'm there, and this property is, they have covered parking. They don't have a parking garage like I had before, and they have just terrible pat grooms, and it's trashy, and it was never the way I remembered it. And the manager was bragging to me that, well, this place has been here for 45 years, and I'm like, well, and I'm thinking to myself, well, it shows it too, because it's trashy. The yard is filthy. It's got poop everywhere. Got poop in my front door, and the carport, the light's out, and it's really too narrow for me to get in and out of with my vehicle. And so I slept there for 6 nights, and I just hated it. They told me the apartment was apartment ready, but it wasn't. The bathtub was a mess, and there was mold all over in the windows and stuff, and the blinds didn't work right on the windows. And so I get up the morning of the 23rd of May, and I say, you know what? I think it's time to move on. It's been a good run, and I said, maybe you need to stop and think for a few minutes about what you're doing. But I said, I have someplace else. I don't want to be here anymore. I want to be somewhere else. So I get up, and I take some garbage bags, and I throw a bunch of my clothes in the garbage bags and throw them in the back of my Bronco, which I had bought because post-stroke I took my 2017 F-150 Lariat, Ford Lariat. I took it and tried to wrap it around a gas pump over in Louisville and tore it all apart. And so anyway, I had called Jared, and I had a brand new vehicle that I used to do most of the move, which a lady, while I was moving, I was at a light in the colony on the freeway exit, and this lady in a Beamer, she rear-ended me, and I got all of her info. So I'm driving my vehicle, which at that point has a ding on the rear end, on the bumper and the tail light, or not the tail light, but a ding on the rear bumper right above the license plate. And so anyway, I grabbed what clothes I could and grabbed my shoes and my grab all that stuff and throw it in the vehicle and go to McDonald's, and get myself my sausage McMuffin and have that. And I call the maintenance guy up because I've got his cell phone. I call him up and I say, "Hey man, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go. I said you can have. You can have my groceries. I said I've got some stuff coming from Amazon today, and I said you need to take that over to UPS, and I'll scan it and I'll send you the label, and you can just take it over there and send it." And I said, I said I forgot my passport and my Social Security card. I said, if you'll send those to my sister, and I gave him my sister's address in Nebraska, and said, well, fuck, I need to get on up the road here headed north. And so I drive until I hit the north part of Kansas, not quite Oklahoma. Well, so I drive on 35 till I get into Kansas, and I'm pretty tired, and I'm like, I do not want to fall asleep at the wheel, so I pull off, and I rent a room and get myself through the shower and get myself in bed. And the next day, of course, is the free breakfast and all that, and I get up and I eat the breakfast and drink some coffee, and I jump back in my vehicle, and I'm like, you know what, I'm most of the way there. And so originally I decided to go to Kearney, Nebraska, because I lived there for a year, a little more than a year actually, working at the television station in Kearney, Nebraska. NTV, it's called, the ABC affiliate, and worked there in master control and in the tape room, what they call the tape room in TV. And and they don't have tape rooms anymore because it's all on hard drives, and they say live on videotape on the air, but they're not. It's all just digital, like this recording is, and all on hard drives that are all cataloged and operated by some sort of computer control. And so anyway, I jump in a vehicle and I head to Kearney, and I keep driving, and Apple Maps, of course, takes me by the shortest route, and I'm driving across the northern part of Kansas, along the kind of 40, 50 miles south of the Nebraska border, and I'm feeling a little drowsy, but don't need coffee. And next thing you know, I get this beep 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 beep, and my vehicle bangs up against a bridge railing, and the passenger side of my Bronco is all torn up. And anyway, I get to Kearney, and I try to find a place to stay. In Kearney, hotels and motels are hard to find, so I get a place at Castlewood Suites, it's called, and I rent the place, rent the room for 2 weeks in advance, which they let me do. And they talk to me, and I tell them I'm disabled, and they say, well, you know what, we're going to put you in a different room that's got a walk-in shower, and so it'll make it a lot easier for you without having to get in and out of the tub. So I do that, and I stay there, and they have the continental breakfast thing going, and I paid them 2 weeks in advance on my Visa, on my Discover card. And I like Discover because they have domestic support, and it's the best interest rate around, instead of like 26% of places like the bank. But anyway, I put that on my Discover, and I'm there, and I'm like, well, you know what? I need to find a place to live. And John, I'm at the Walgreens store getting my heart medicine, and my phone rings, and it's the property down in the Vines, it's called, at the Vines in Louisville, and they say, there's a guy here by the name of John Kotalik Is it okay if we let him in your apartment? And I said, absolutely. By all means, let John in my apartment. So John goes into the apartment. He gets my two TVs, my TV stand, and he pitches my filing cabinet, and he can't find the passport or the Social Security card, and nor any of my tools, nor my refrigerators, nor my glass table and the chairs. They're all gone, and the window's busted out. So I suspect what happened is upon my calls and my return of the keys, which I left at the rental leasing office door at the Vines, I suspect they changed the lock and the leasing guy didn't have a way to get in there with a master key. And so what he did was he just broke the window out and let himself in and all my stuff off, including my passport. So then John called, like I said, they asked me if it's okay if John goes in the apartment, and John does his thing, and he hauls his shit home, and he gets Brad to go. He goes over to Austin Ranch to Thousand Oaks, and he takes Brad with him. And I have left behind a bunch of clothes in that place when I was moving, saying, you know what, this is all just baggage. I'm exhausted. I was very, very tired from the move and the pressure and the stress. I was exhausted. And I had fallen in the parking lot next to my vehicle when I was lugging my weight set around that I had in my office. And I had fallen, and I had a hard time getting up off the concrete in the parking lot. So anyway, John calls me up, and he says I was doing some checking. He said I know where you might be able to live. He said it's a place over here in Grand Island, and he said it's got a handicap, an ADA compliant apartment, and he says I would go over there and talk to them. And so I came over here and I talked to them, and I gave them the first month's rent, and I had put my money in the bank and saved back, so I had at least the first month's rent. So anyway, I leased this place, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go stay in Hastings for a week at the Motel 6. And I got to the Motel 6, and the TV didn't work, and some guy from Iran, I think it was, owned the place and ran it, and he couldn't get the TV going. So I said, you know what, I'm not staying in your motel if you can't get the TV going. I said, your front desk people here are dumber than bricks, and that pissed him off, and he wanted me, and I told him I wanted all my money back, and he said no. And I said, I am not paying you for tonight. I said the only thing I did was go number one. And he says, I want you to apologize and put it in writing and say it to his face. I want you to apologize to my family, my employee here, who is part of my family, or he's like one of my family. He said, if you don't do that, I'm not going to give your money back. And I said, if you don't give me my money back, I'm going to charge back with Discover as a guarantee. And he says, but good luck with that. And I'm like, well, I said, okay, if you want me to apologize, I will. So I apologized to this guy and said, I'm sorry. I said you were dumber than bricks. I want my money back. And he shakes my hand and he says, okay, well, you got your apology done and you wrote your apology out. And he said, you did what I asked, so we're going to give you all your money back. And I said, well, that's wonderful, thank you. And so I packed up my stuff, and there was some sort of event going on here in Grand Island that night. I tried in Hastings to find a place, and I tried in Grand Island to find a place, and there was some sort of convention or wrestling tournament or something that was going on. And I couldn't find a place anywhere. And so I called my sister and said, I need your help. And so she comes over, we go to Walmart, we get an air mattress and some pillows and a comforter and some sheets and a mattress pad, and we bring it over here and throw that down in the room. And I've already got the key code because I've got possession of the property. And I take my stuff and she helps me get situated. And so anyway, I get myself situated and put the electric in my name and do all those things the next day. And so I am a terrible procrastinator, which a lot of times gets me in trouble because I get impatient with people, and it comes out a different way. So anyway, I think I need to go down this list here real quick because I've been here talking for almost an hour. Here's the people I want to thank, this particular video I want to be as part of my obituary and maybe any remembrance service. Here in the next couple of weeks, as I said, I'm gonna get some hernia surgery done probably and spend some time in the hospital, which will involve Lisa house sitting my place, and she's gonna drive me back and forth because I probably can't do it because I'm not probably gonna be in any sort of shape to do that. So the people I wish to thank are Bump and Myra for fostering my environment, taking care of me when I was sick, giving me a solid education, and empowering me with learning tools, and empowering me with a place to live in Ainsworth, and empowering me with both of their families, and making sure that my brilliance was recognized, because I have the good fortune of being gifted before my brain was turned to mush with the stroke. So anyway, so thanks to Bump and Myra and all the wonderful people in the neighborhood there south of Woodlake, the Reese family, who I worked for and who worked for me, and who my dad worked for a bunch. I had a lot of fun driving tractors and doing corn and silage, and riding the cat on the silage pit, things like that. And Reese's was always an adventure for me. And also thanks to my mom's friend, Dorothy, who took care of me when my parents had to attend my mom's brother's funeral because he committed suicide when his younger brother outed him as being gay, which I believe he was, because I knew even even in 1969 at 9 years old, I knew that Frank was very different from the rest of us. So anyway, thanks to them, and thanks to the great instructors I had, like Mr. Dale Mundorf, who was my teacher in 7th and 8th grade, and Art Hudson, who let me stay at his house when we had football practice in Woodlake, where we went to the school, and all these wonderful people and the great facilities that the WPA built in 1929, the high school there in Woodlake that they repurposed as the elementary school in 1968, I think it was, or 67, when my dad took up the school bus route and hauled all the neighborhood kids back and forth to school every day, including me and his own kids. 2 boys and 2 girls in our own family, and then same situation for Bob and Kay Reese, and then and we had other kids we picked up all up and down the road, and sometimes even south of us, the Huddle Boys, and so rain or shine, my dad would make that trip, even if it meant going the long way around and going to Johnstown, the town that's about 25 miles to the east of Woodlake, and so we go over the hills and take the Johnstown Road to get out of the snow and out of the muck, because the Woodlake Road south of Woodlake was notorious for having too much clay and being slick and difficult to drive, and also for not getting the timely removal of snow, things like that. So thanks to Bump and Myra, and thanks to mom's siblings for taking care of me when I went to Oregon, giving me a vehicle to get around and giving me a place to sleep, and not giving me money, but because that's something I've always been pretty able to do on my own up until, which I'm going to crash and burn here in 2027 when all my money runs out. The smartest thing I ever did as an individual was I insured my income when I was working through the Hartford Insurance Long-Term Disability called, and so I get a check from them until the day before my 67th birthday, which is the official retirement age in the United States, or 67th birthday, which is the official retirement age. And So anyway, thanks to all those people, Bob Mara, Bob K. Jr. and Arlene Reese, and the OC Parrott for mentoring me, Maggie, his wife, for mentoring me, and being my mom's lifelong friend, and just everybody up and down the line. That's just, and I keep saying, sorry, I've done it now. I just ticked over an hour, so it's a long video. It's going to take a while to upload, which I will do here in just a little bit. I was nibbling on some food here. So anyway, thank you all so much for empowering me to such a great life. It's been a great run, and thank you to my sisters Emily and Lisa for managing my final affairs. Thank you, John, for finding me a place. Thank you for rescuing me from the stroke, John, and thank you, Lisa, for taking care of me now, and thank you, Emily, for managing my financials once I pass. So that's about it. I need to pee big time, so I'm out of here. You have a great day. Bye-bye. And if this doesn't end up being my last video, which it probably won't, I think I'll live. But anyway, anyway, so get the surgery done and move forward. So see you later. Gotta go pee. Bye-bye. And then I'm going to talk to John again. He's in the air right now. He's flying. So that's it. Thanks. It's a wrap. Thanks. Bye-bye.